In this video, I'm going to break down the design of this really simple entryway awning that was shared in our community. This is a fantastic build. I think a really a great one that a lot of people will find useful for their home, or maybe you want to cover an entryway to a garage or shed, something like that. And it's really not too complicated, and we're just going to talk about the design of it, and specifically the part that's made with EMT conduit and maker pipe. If you're unfamiliar with those two materials, conduit is something you can get in the electrical aisle of your local hardware home improvement store, and maker pipe fittings are something that we manufacture in upstate South Carolina. So you can use conduit to build all kinds of really cool things. And we're just going to break down the design of this frame, and there's some really great techniques in this that I can't wait to talk about. So we'll just jump right in and check this out. But here it is, all finished and covering the door. And I think this is made entirely out of 1/2 inch EMT conduit, because if you look closely, looks like they're using the 3/4 inch connectors with the adapter shims that we make, and those are just made to snap onto 1/2 inch EMT conduit, so you can use that for building your projects if you don't need 3/4 inch. And so I think they built this entire thing out of 1/2 inch EMT. There's obviously some other materials involved, like some wood, and then some corrugated panels that are being used for kind of the roof part of the frame. But this is really cool, and it looks like they have a piece of wood attached to their house. I don't know if this was already there or if they added this. I would imagine they probably added this for the project. So you can see there they've got that screwed into the side of the house, and then from there kind of built out the rest of the frame. So we'll kind of talk about this and talk about the frame first, and then we'll highlight the other techniques that I think are really good. But first of all here, it's pretty much just 4 T-connectors being used on the outside corners to make this kind of 2-dimensional rectangular frame. And we see a lot of different rectangles and cubes and things that people build. And if you're just making a panel like this, a 2-dimensional rectangle, then you want to use the T connector, because that allows you to join 2 pieces of conduit, as we see here in this corner. You just use the conduit in the top half of the connector flush with the end, as you can see, and that allows you to make a 90-degree elbow. If you're making a full-on cube, like a garden enclosure or something, that's when you use the 90-degree connector. But for these kind of builds, you want to use the T connector. But essentially, the way maker pipe connectors work, you don't have to do any welding. They're just friction based, and you use a 5mm hex wrench to secure them around the EMT. And you have 2 different types of connections. You've got the through connection, which is this top half, and that's what allows this piece of conduit to sit flush with the end there, and then goes all the way down to the other corner. And then the other piece of conduit actually terminates inside of the connector. So it stops right inside there. So there's a little bit of a gap between the other pipe and the piece of conduit that you're joining in this T shape. And essentially that pipe just terminates there and then extends all the way down to this other T connector, and then it's the exact same thing. So it terminates in the connector, and then you've got this horizontal bar that's sitting flush in the connector somewhere. Can't really see it because of the photo, but it's going all the way down and then into that other T connector. That's not really that straight of a line. Kind of hard to do because I don't have a conduit to draw on top of, but essentially that is what that looks like. And the T connector is grabbing on in the corners, and it's doing that in all 4 corners. Just you have the piece that's terminating in it, and then going all the way to the back to the other T connector, terminating there, and then that's how you make a 2-dimensional rectangle with T connectors. So just 4 of those to start with. And then we've got a center support brace that is going from the back of the frame to the front. And because of the through pipe connection, they're actually taking advantage of that, and you don't have to break up this long span. You can just grab on with the T connector, and then it's running continuously through that top half the same way it was on the 2 or kind of the outer corners. And then you've got another piece of conduit just grabbing onto that, and then going all the way down to another T connector that's grabbing on the exact same way, just grabbing onto that horizontal bar, and then terminating inside of the end there. And so that's how you build the main panel of this frame. And this is a great technique if you're building any kind of 2-dimensional panel, like I mentioned. And then from there, you just need to kind of attach it to the house and attach it and brace it, which is what they did here with the adjustable angle flange connector. So essentially the flange here has this base with 6 holes in it. Those are going directly into the side of the house. And then they've got this connector has what we call the end clamp coming out of it that allows you to adjust it to different angles. And so essentially it's bolted to the house, just those 6 holes there, and there's it's being secured. And then you've got the end clamp that has a terminating connection. And so this piece of conduit is terminating in there. And this is, let's use a different color. How about that? Just so it's a little bit easier to see. Let's use a green. So it's terminating inside of there. And then this angled piece of conduit is going all the way up to the front And then they're using, you guessed it, another T connector to grab onto that horizontal bar. And because they have that through connection, you're able to kind of rotate that T and get it at the exact angle you need. And so that's how they're able to accomplish that with the T and use that there. And then on the other side, it's the exact same thing repeated. So I'm not going to mark up at the top here because there's the T connector, but it's kind of hard to see because of all the markings and such. But down here, we've got the adjustable angle flange again with the piece of conduit coming out of it and going up at an angle. And it's a really nice slant, to allow the rain or snow or whatever it is to slide right off of this. And you could, make this more aggressive by just shortening this piece of conduit that's supporting this, or those two pieces, if you want to, have that angled even more. But that's essentially the maker pipe and conduit frame. And then they used a really good technique to secure this and to make the roof piece as well. So essentially, as we can see here, we'll just go back and start a new picture. But essentially here, we've got these pieces of wood that are going across the entirety of the frame. And those are secured in place with electrical one-hole straps. So if you've never seen those before, it's just basically snaps on the EMT conduit and then goes around. And then there's a flat tab that has a hole in it that you can secure things. So they're using that to secure the pieces of wood to the framework, which is a really good technique. And we can see there's a bunch of those. I think there's 20 in total. They're using a bunch here on the actual roof panels just to secure those in place. But then they're also being used, there's a bunch of them used against the house to secure the frame to that piece of wood that we talked about at the very beginning. And so that is secured there in that way. And then what those pieces of wood do is they give you a flat, platform that you can then secure the corrugated panels to. So we can't see exactly how that's happening. I would imagine it's pretty standard, just using a short screw, probably a weather, like one that has like a rubber washer or something that is weather sealed or weatherproof, I guess. Maybe not weatherproof completely, but just works really good in this kind of situation. So moisture doesn't get trapped in there or go through the hole. But then I imagine there is a bunch of those in strategic places to secure the panel to the wood. And we've seen people do awnings. We actually have a couple of awnings outside of our shop that are made in this way. And we didn't use any kind of wood. We just did the self-drilling screws through the material and into the conduit. So we've seen people do that, but I think this is a good way to do it as well. And gives you a really good awning that you can have over your entryway. And it's not too complicated, not too expensive, especially if you use 1/2 inch EMT conduit. I'd probably recommend using 3/4. I mean, they're using 1/2 inch. It's working okay. But just make sure to do your own testing and make sure it's going to hold up. We don't want this thing flying off your house when there's a lot of wind coming through. So just make sure it's well supported and, you're designing it with the constraints of EMT conduit and connectors in mind. And something I didn't mention is you can customize the dimensions really easily. You just use a handheld tubing cutter to cut conduit. So that process is really easy, and you can make this custom as they did here to fit over their doorway. That's really cool. Really appreciate Rita sharing this idea. Hopefully you found it helpful and got some ideas from this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.